Hey bestie, let me tell you about this book I just read. So basically, it's like the Hunger Games, but not at all in any way. And so we meet Mare Barra, who's our main character. She's got a bunch of brothers and her parents, and her dad's in a wheelchair. And she lives in the stilts, which is like District 12, if we're doing the Hunger Games analogy. And so basically, everybody either has to have a job or they go to war. So they get conscripted at like 18, and so she's like 17, about to get conscripted. Because she doesn't have a job, she's a thief. She goes around and she steals things from the people of the stilts who are already poor anyway. She's got her shady black market man, Will, and he kind of like he takes everything that she brings to him, and he gives her money. Anyway, so her brothers, Shade, Bree, and Tamri, are all off fighting for the war, and then and then her sister Giza does silk embroidery, so she works for the Silvers. So in this book, people are divided either into the slums or they're like royalty, basically, based on the color of their blood. So there's obviously the Reds, who have red blood, and the Silvers, who have silver blood. The Silvers also have powers, which is what makes like the silver blood better to have. So there's like strong arms, who are and then there's Telkies, who can, control things with their minds. And then there's like nymphs for like water and air. And then people who can bend shadows, people who can control metal, people who can control fire, anything you can think of, basically, there's somebody who has that power. There's also like singers who can like look into your eyes and have you like follow exactly what they're saying. And then there's also like a whisper, who they go into your mind and they can control you like through mind control, basically, but they don't have to be like looking directly at you like singers have to. Anyway, moving on. So we meet Mare, and she's got her like childhood BFF, Kalorn, who's basically the Gale to her Katniss. And we're like going through, and they go to these like fights where the Silvers fight to basically prove like, oh, we got all these powers and you don't, and like we could kill you. And so they go to the arena fight, and then when they get back, she's like at home just chilling. Kalorn comes in, and he's like crying because he was an apprentice and his master died, so he's no longer an apprentice, and so now he has to go to war. And so now it's Mare's job. She's like, I'll fix it, don't even worry about it. And so she has decided that it's her job. She's gonna get enough money for someone to smuggle her. So she goes to Will. She's like, what's it gonna cost? And he's like, well, this is my BFF Farley, and she'll be the one you ask. And she asks Farley, and Farley says, I need 2,000 gold crowns, which is more money than Mare's probably ever seen in her entire life. So it's 1,000 for each of them. So she's like, well, shit, I better get to work. And so she goes out, and she's thieving as fast as her little heart can. And she gets caught by somebody when she's thieving. And he's like, hey, what's up with all the thieving? And she's like, poor. And so he gives her 2 tetrarchs, which are basically these coins that are worth 1 crown each. But they're the kind of coins that you would find in like the royal city. And she's like, oh, that's kind of weird that he's got these coins. Whatever. She goes home. She's like still thinking, oh, I missed a whole thing. So she's like, I've got a plan. I need to, rewind. So her first plan, before she starts just stealing, in the middle of the night and before she meets the stranger or whatever, she goes to the city called Somerton, which is where Giza works for the Silvers. It's like the Silver City near her. And so she goes in there, and she's planning on thieving something because everything they carry is like enough to get her like the money that she would need. And so she is in there with Giza while Giza's like going off to work, and then she's gonna steal something. And while she's in there, before she can even steal anything, an announcement like comes onto all the like screens that are in the city. It basically says there's been an attack on the like royal palace or whatever by somebody called the Scarlet Guard, and it's a bunch of Reds who are terrorists. And so basically the Silvers go apeshit, and they start like attacking all the Reds that are there, so they have to flee. So she doesn't get to steal anything as they're going out. Giza tries to steal something, but she is unlucky enough to have stolen something from a cloner. So he like surrounds her, he like populates himself, and he surrounds her, and like she gets caught, and then a guard breaks her hand, and Mare is feeling super bad that she got her sister's hand broken. So that's when Mare goes, and then she's, remember I said, so she's like stealing, and then this like guy, is like, why are you stealing, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you remember that part. So now that she's got some money, she's like, oh, I gotta go home. It's still not enough, but whatever, I tried. In the morning, they get awoken by security. And then she ends up getting a job at the palace, like working for the royal family as a servant. She's like, oh, this is pretty, like, tight. Like, now I don't have to worry about going to war. And, like, maybe, like, I don't know, Farley can hook me up and, like, save Clorne and all this stuff, or I can send money or whatever. So basically, she is a servant at Queen's Trial, which is when they have everybody come in and basically do, like, a pageant showing off your powers so that one of them can be married to the crown prince. Because there's the king, Tiberius, blah, 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 king of the north, blah, 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 whatever. And then his second wife, her name's Alara. So he had a son with his first wife, Corianne, I believe is her name. Could be wrong. He has a son named Cal with the first wife. And then he has a son named Maven with the second wife. So he's got his two sons. Cal's the crown prince, and he's the one that they're all trying to win his hand. Win his hand. Well, you know, basically, they want to get chosen. And so they all come in, and they all got these powers, and they're, like, doing all their powers and shit. And there's a favorite. Her name's Evangeline. She's the favorite. She's a magnetron, so she can control metal. And so she goes in there, and she's all, you know, and she moves a box that Mare is standing in while she's serving. Mare falls onto this, like, electric shield that they had over the arena to protect everybody. And they're like, oh, shoot, she's toast. Mare is completely fine. And so everybody's like, because she's a red, she's supposed to just have, like, cooked on the shield, and she didn't. And so, they're like, oh, like, she's a little lightning girl or whatever. So it turns out that Mare, even though she's a red, can create electricity, which we kind of get earlier. Like, at one point she, like, had, like, banged the electricity box outside, and there's, like, a zap, and then the power turned on. So, and she always talks about, like, the cameras. She can feel them watching her. So it's kind of been hinted at that she's the little lightning girl anyway. Oh, and also it turns out that Cal, the crown prince, is the one who caught her stealing, and he got her the job at the palace. And so there's that whole thing. And then, like, you're going along, and she has to go to training and has to protocol, because the king is like, this is not good. We cannot have people knowing that a red, like, has these powers. This is so weird. So they make up this story for her that she is, you know, Marina Titanos, and she's, like, the son of some person in one of the houses, and because the royal family, they got all these different houses that have the different powers, and, you know, they control storms and blah, 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 blah. So they make up this story about who she is to say that she is a silver, is why she has powers. She just didn't know she was, and she was raised with reds. And so then she has to go to all this training and everything. Like, just imagine the cutscenes from the Hunger Games. That's exactly what's happening in this part of the book. And then she's got to go to all these lunches with the ladies and go to protocol. And she has lessons with somebody named Julian. And Julian is Cal's uncle. So it was Cal's mom's sister. No, Cal's mom's brother. So the late queen's brother. And so he is kind of like, I know you're a red. Can't fool me. And so he basically wants to teach her, like, how to use her power. And, like, he's like, oh, cool, you actually, like, create electricity. Whereas, like, most other powers, like, they can just control it. So, like, if your power was fire, you would need, like, a spark to start your power. You can't just create fire. You can just control it once it's already there. And so, like, she's, like, very special. And anyway, they go on, and throughout this time, and part of her thing is that, you know, in order to hide this, she's going to marry Maven. So she'll be, like, part of the royal family. And Maven, she's, like, not so sure about him at first, and then she starts to really like him. And he ends up joining the Scarlet Guard. So, like, Maven and Mare are kind of buddy-buddy, but also she's kind of friends with Cal this whole time. But she's like, no, he's, like, the enemy, and he's all this kind of stuff. Whatever. So then... So blah, 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 blah. We keep going. Eventually, some of the Scarlet Guard, like, they have this plan to do this, you know, they want to kill some of the royals and, you know, get all this stuff because they want the reds to be, like, equal to the silvers. And so they kill a bunch of people, and there's a bombing, and Mare's like, I didn't want there to be a bombing and all this stuff. And some of the Scarlet Guard gets caught, and then Julian helps, like, sing them out and all these things. They find out Mare's involved and all this kind of stuff. Julian figures out that there's the blood database there are these people who are like they're reds, but they have the powers of silver, but they're stronger than both. And there's this whole theme throughout the book that like anyone can betray anyone. And so we're just kind of going along trying to figure out like how to do all the stuff. And then we get towards the end of the book, and so Maven has been in the Scarlet Guard the whole time, and then Cal's gonna be fighting on the war front. We go to the like actual city, not like they're just their summer town, like not just Summerton, which is their summer house. We go to like the main city. It's like White Palace or White Fire Palace, I don't know. Then we get there, and long story short, we get to a point in the book where we have Cal, the king, Maven, and Alara. And Alara does her little mind control so that Cal and the king both like are not in control of themselves. She makes Cal cut off the king's head and then turns the cameras back on, and she's like all screaming, so it looks like Cal just like killed his dad in cold blood. And you know, she's like being a great actress and she's screaming and all this kind of stuff. It turns out her and Maven plotted this the whole time. So Maven's actually a bad guy, which, yeah, you kind of see it coming with the whole anyone can betray anyone, but still, it's shocking. And so then, because Cal killed his dad, like he's not gonna be like, they're not gonna let him be king. So Maven is the king now, which was the plan the whole time. Is Alara wanted her son to be the king, and so then they end up arresting Mare and Cal because, you know, they like committed a murder, whatever, and oh, she's bad because we know all these things about her because obviously she's been telling things to Maven because he's been in the guard as well. And so then they're going to be executed, and so they go down to like the Bowl of Bones, which is like the big arena where all this stuff happens, and you know, they like kill like the one guard who's been her friend, and then they have, you know, Cal and Mare. Cal gets a weapon, Mare doesn't, and they're in the arena, and Cal's like, hey, I'll protect you, because remember, at one point they kissed, so like they have a little bit of feelings going on there. And then so he's like, I'll protect you, and I'm missing a little bit of stuff, but you can read the book if you really want to, bestie. Anyway, so they have all these like people like come out, like these different people with different powers come out and like try to like kill them, but like as a show, so there's like the public there because obviously they're like traitors, and so Maven wants to make an example of them. And so they're in this arena, and they're like fighting. Mare's using her like pew, 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 electricity. It's all going real well. And this like hole, like where some water nymph was getting her water from in the middle of the arena, they end up getting dragged into the hole. And then they end up on this train that they went on earlier. This like under train, which is this like underground train that like goes through all these different places. They went there earlier into a place that used to be like the radiation zone, but there's no radiation there anymore. They just had some reds who like messed with the sensors so that the royals still think that there's radiation there, so they never go there. So it's like a safe haven for the rebellious reds. And so they're on that under train again, so they're presumably going to the safe haven. And we find out that Mare's one brother, Shade, is not dead, because earlier in the book, like they were like, oh, you're like, your brother's dead, but he's not dead. He is actually like Mare, where he has a power, but he's a red, so he can teleport places. So he's part of the Scarlet Guard. So she's like super shocked to see him, and Kaloran's there, and they're all super like big manly, you know, whatever. And Mare and Cal just kind of look at each other, and like the only thought in their head is like, Maven's gonna die, we gonna kill him. And that is the end of the book. So at the end of the book, you know, we got evil Maven, brother's still alive, Cal and Mare want to plot revenge on Maven, and they're fleeing. And that is the end of the book. And yes, so I think you should read it. It's pretty good. It's like I said, it's the Hunger Games, but not. In one sentence, it's the Hunger Games, but not at all. But not really, not even a little bit, not at all. I enjoyed it. I think you would too. Thanks for listening, bestie. If If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, giving me a like, writing a comment down below. My next book is going to be The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Bye.